All right, let's dive into what might just be the most overlooked chapter in one of the Bible's most powerful books. We're talking about the final chapter of Romans. Think about it. After 15 chapters of absolutely mind-blowing theology about faith, grace, and righteousness, the Apostle Paul wraps it all up with a long list of greetings. It's so easy to just kind of skim past that part, right? But what if this list is more than just a bunch of hellos? What if it's actually the key to seeing how all that incredible theology is supposed to look in real life?
And that's really what we're going to unpack here. This isn't just some random appendix. It's a blueprint. Paul is giving us a snapshot of the kind of community the gospel creates, a diverse, dynamic, and deeply connected network of people who are actually living this stuff out together.
So let's start by digging into some of the first names Paul mentions. And believe me, these aren't just random people. These were the heavy hitters, the influential leaders who were absolutely foundational to the early church. Paul kicks things off with a formal commendation for a woman named Phebe. He calls her a servant of the church. Now, you see the word servant, and you might think, okay, she was a helper, someone who served behind the scenes, but hold on, there is so much more going on with that word. The key is the Greek word Paul uses here, diakonos. And this is a huge deal, because this is the exact same word he uses in other places for official church officers or deacons. This means Phebe wasn't just lending a hand. She held a recognized official leadership position. He even calls her a prostatis, a patron, basically a benefactor who used her wealth and influence to support the church and Paul himself. Next up, we meet this absolute power couple, Priscilla and Aquila. Paul doesn't call them his assistants. He calls them his synergos, his colleagues, his fellow workers. They were partners in the mission. I mean, these two risked their own lives for him and hosted a church right in their home, making it a vital hub for the Christian community. And get this, more often than not, Paul lists Priscilla's name first, which almost certainly points to her prominent role in their ministry. Okay, so as we keep moving down this list of names, a truly revolutionary picture of the early church starts to come into focus. This was not some uniform, homogeneous group of people. No way. It was radically diverse. This chart just lays it all out, doesn't it? We've got Greek names, Latin names, Hebrew names, so you have Jews and Gentiles together, you have men and women working side by side, and you have names that were common among both slaves and free citizens. This is the big takeaway, folks. This community is the gospel with skin on. It's the real-world result of everything Paul just preached, breaking down every single human barrier you can imagine. And, Paul just goes out of his way to honor the women in this network. He mentions a woman named Mary who bestowed much labor on us. He greets Tryphena and Tryphosa, who labor in the Lord. And then there's the beloved Persis, who labored much, which suggests she worked to the point of complete exhaustion for the sake of the gospel. But maybe the most striking example of all is Junia. Paul greets her and Andronicus as his relatives and, get this, his fellow prisoners. That means they suffered in jail right alongside him for their faith. And then he drops this bombshell. He says they are of note among the apostles. The most natural way to read that in the original Greek is that they were highly respected by the apostles or were even considered apostles themselves. This makes Junia a remarkable, highly esteemed female leader in the very first generation of the church. But after all these warm, personal shout-outs, the tone of the chapter just completely shifts. It gets really serious, really fast. Paul issues this sharp, urgent warning because he knew that a community this special, this precious, was also a target. Paul tells the believers in Rome to mark and avoid anyone who causes divisions that go against what they've been taught. The contrast he paints is just so stark. True teachers serve Jesus Christ. False teachers, well, as Paul bluntly puts it, they serve their own belly. Their goal is personal gain, and their method is deception, using smooth talk and flattering words to fool people who are sincere and unsuspecting. But right after that heavy warning, he gives them this magnificent promise. He assures them that victory is already theirs. He echoes that very first promise back in the book of Genesis and declares that God himself is going to crush Satan under their feet. And notice who does it. It's the God of peace, reminding us all that true spiritual victory always leads to peace and wholeness. So, what does this ancient list of names and this old warning mean for us, right now,
today? Well, this final section shows us how Romans 16 isn't just a history lesson. It's a timeless blueprint for building healthy, thriving communities of faith. So here are 4 practical steps we can pull directly from this chapter. First, honor everyone's work, just like Paul honored Phebe, Persis, and all the others. Second, practice hospitality, like Priscilla and Aquila did. Open up your homes and your lives. Third, guard the gospel. Be wise, be discerning, and protect the community from those divisive influences. And finally, live in unity, celebrating the diversity that so powerfully shows the world what the gospel is all about. And really, this is what it all boils down to. The profound doctrines in the book of Romans aren't just abstract ideas to be debated. They are the very foundation for building a real-life, loving, diverse, and unified family where every single person is seen, valued, and honored. And that's why Paul ends with this incredible burst of praise. The entire letter, the whole story of salvation, it all leads to this single point, giving all glory to the one all-wise God. That's the ultimate purpose of our theology and our community, to bring praise to Him through Jesus Christ. And that leaves us with a question to really chew on. In our own lives, in our own communities, our own churches, how can we intentionally build communities that look like this? Communities that reflect that same radical diversity and that deep mutual honor that we see in this incredible first-century network. To solidify your understanding of this lesson, be sure to use the flashcards to review key terms and then take the quiz. Passing the quiz will mark this lesson as complete.